Welcome to the Saynetwork podcast. I am Jim, and I'm here with Megan Villalpando.
Hey.
And on the couch, we have Christina Macias.
Hello.
And Heather Sentime.
Hello, hello.
I think I said it correctly.
Nailed it.
I work on it. I try to.
Pretty close.
I want to say it correctly. On today's episode, we are talking social media and how it not only affects all of us, but how it mostly affects girls. Experts have long blamed social media use for the rise in mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and suicidal behavior in young people, but not all studies support that. A recent study showed that it doesn't have as terrible of an impact. It's not as significant of an impact. It does impact people, but not as much as the other studies show. And I'm sure there's going to be a study next week that says the opposite. Either way, social media does impact us greatly. Today, we're going to do a breakdown of a Time magazine article that highlights how social media is hurting girls more than boys. The article is cited by multiple studies, all of which will be linked in the show notes. We brought on our most senior social media experts here, girls.
Senior?
Oh, sorry. Junior.
I'll take it.
Age-wise. No, we've all been part of social media and probably have been affected by it. So we're going to kind of break down this survey. In 2013, a study of 10,000 teens found that 43% said they regularly checked social media multiple times. The following year was 59%. The following year rose 68.5%. If you can remember, do these percentages seem to line up with your social media usage?
At that time?
At that time, or when you got really going in social media, yeah. Did you limp in or did you just go right in?
I mean, I think for me,
Because you guys are younger, so a little bit different.
yeah, I think for me, my first social media was actually AOL Instant Messenger,
Okay.
if that counts.
Yeah.
AIM.
But that was all on a computer that was stationary at my house. It
Mhm.
wasn't on a phone that I wandered
Right.
through. So that's a little bit of a different factor. And then I had MySpace. Shout out to Tom if he's listening. But then,
Everybody's friend.
yeah,
I
everyone's
wasn't
friend.
lonely, thanks to Tom.
Yeah. And then I joined Facebook when I was in college, when you had to have that college email address.
Mhm.
And so I think getting a later start, but also not having access to a smartphone early on, my experience was probably a bit different than what teens these days. But I know it has amplified. It has ramped up now that the access has ramped up.
Yeah, thinking like with your phone, like when that started to come, did you think did you go, was it like all in? Because I know like when you get something new, you're like, oh my gosh, and you're checking it out and you can't stop checking it out. Or did you kind of limp in? Because for me, I think I was more of like, well, yeah, no, I'll check it every once in a while, but I didn't want to be that person either. Because when Facebook came around, MySpace started it, and then when Facebook came around, it was like you're wasting your time. That was like the narrative. Oh, they're on Facebook all day. They're on this all day. That's what you would hear like in the workplace. And I was like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person. But then over time, that just kind of follows these percentages. But that be the case for you guys?
Well, okay, so I guess looking back to that age, I didn't even have a phone until middle school, and I didn't even think it was a smartphone. I don't know. But then, and I don't think I had a computer in my house till I was out of high school. So, I definitely I wasn't on it like a lot. I had to go out of my way to be on it. And so I didn't go on it a ton. I guess by the time I got a smartphone and had it on my phone, it was before notifications were a thing. And so I've actually kept that same habit where I don't have any social media notifications on my phone even now. So
Neither
like
do
I have to go a tiny bit more out of my way to go and check on that, I guess. I don't know. For my own sanity.
Yeah, I don't do the notifications either, mostly because I don't want my phone buzzing all the time. But I'm also kind of a freak about that percentage in the top right corner. I feel like anything that's going to move that needle down faster, I take it away. So,
Or the red badges.
yeah.
I hate having like,
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
say like one.
Oh, yeah. There's no. So your social media trajectory, we got yours. What's your trajectory?
So I think for me, it was like halfway through high school, and I think it was all in. I didn't have a computer at home, so there used to be like a local spot that we would go and pay to use a computer.
Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of my close friends, we would go and pay for the hour, 2 hours, 3 hours while we were trying to like pimp our MySpace or whatever it was. Like you're doing all these links trying to figure out the best way for it to look. But we were spending a lot of time. And so anytime we were around a computer, we even at say like one of our friends' house, we would go over and we would hang out. But really what it meant is we were on a rotation trying to check our notifications on MySpace.
Wow.
So because we didn't have the access, as soon as we did, we were on and we were pretty sucked in pretty quickly. Yeah.
And groups, were you part of groups, or were you guys writing on each other's walls while you were sitting in?
Yeah. Having conversations even though we're sitting right next to each other. Like it was dumb. Or like, if you get mad at them, then you move them down on
The
your
friends
top
list.
8 or
The
whatever
top
it
8
was.
debacle.
Yeah, it was a whole deal. But we were we would use it pretty often. It wasn't on our phone yet,
Yeah.
but we would go and pay to use a computer in order to be on MySpace. As soon as it transferred over to Facebook, I think by then we had it on our phones, and then that started. That was a whole deal. But yeah, pretty quickly through maybe halfway through high school, it was a deal.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Have you guys run into trauma in social media? Like heavy drama because of social media?
Do you mean by interactions on
Yeah.
social media?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Do you have a Facebook? You've seen drama.
No, but like where you've kind of gone to war or maybe felt like you were bullied and attacked?
I don't think my personality takes it that personally. So I don't know that I feel bullied or attacked.
Mhm.
I think it's more of, instead of like loose lips, I'm like, oh, they're falling off at the fingertips now with their typing.
Mm.
And I'm like, whatever. It's more of a them issue for
Mhm.
me. But I actually, after like the pandemic and having like a ramped up access to social media throughout the day and like being bored and being on social media more and seeing all of that on Facebook, I have actually stopped using Facebook simply because of the tension and the debates and the arguments that it's constantly just flooding, and I'm over it.
Yeah.
It becomes addicting, kind of.
Mhm.
You're like, what else is happening? Even if it's not your own conversation, you're just interested and you're like, what else is happening? And you're just on it for a while, and then you remember throughout the day, and you're going back to check it. And
Yeah.
why?
Mhm.
No.
The habitual pickup,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just to see what's up. No.
If you were 15 again, what would you say to your 15-year-old self about social media?
Down the road, there will be memories, and you will have to reread those,
Mhm.
and it's gonna be embarrassing. So stop it. You don't need to put everything that you think and are doing, or certain things. It's cool to look at memories, right? But for
Yeah.
the most part, you're like, that's embarrassing. I can't believe I had that conversation, or I just posted what I would, because that simple sentence of like, what was it, like, how are you feeling,
Yeah.
or
The
whatever.
prompts that they would give
Yeah,
you.
why am I
Yeah.
answering that for
Yeah.
the world to see?
Yeah. Or what was it? It was like Heather is ... And so you have all these half sentences, and I was
Yes.
like, it
Always.
doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I think for me, it would be, does the rest of the world need to know this? Does the rest of the world care? Like, could it be a DM? Could it be a call? Could it be a text message? Like, could you keep it private, or does 1,000 people on social media and then whoever else shares it, do they need to know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's okay to have boundaries. You don't like have to tie your entire life to this outlet.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm in the same camp. It's like, hey, take a break. And because one of the issues that kids face is there's no break for them in their social circles because of social media. And so what's going on at school carries over to after school into the night and then the next day. And the addiction is so significant and a lot of the times that they it's a constant refresh and on different apps, and the kids are going to move from different app to different app, and that's natural. And we've seen it over the years, go from Facebook to uh Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, TikTok. They just kind of, there's always going to be another one that goes around. But my concern always is that there's not a break. There's not a social break where you're getting a break from that. And if you're involved in a teenage group that is of drama, that attracts drama and is surrounded by drama, you're not allowing yourself to have that break, or you're not allowing your child to have that break by putting in those boundaries that you're talking about, Megan. and that's to me really dangerous. And in this study, it showed that it did affect girls more than it does guys, uh, because they care more about it, basically. And so that's why it's affecting girls. And there's a lot of issues on social media that could target girls, whether it be through body image, complexities and stuff like that. But a lot of it is just that break, that social break, that it's heavy. And we recorded a podcast before, and Jordan was telling us a story about how on Snapchat you would have consecutive days in a row
Mhm.
and stuff like that, and he made it over 1,000 with one of his friends and stuff like that. And he said it became meaningless. It was just we just had to keep that streak
Streak,
going.
yeah.
And so there's part of that that happens in these social circles of like I can't miss out, and because I'm going to go to school the next day, and I'm not going to have the social capital to hang in that experience. Uh, does that concern you as youth leaders and mentors of girls, uh, that lifestyle at all?
Yeah. I mean, it's my nieces are younger, and I remember. I mean, it's not as much of a thing anymore because now they're adults. But in their high school years, that was a big thing. It was almost like making them anxious. I need to get to a place. If we were, say, I don't know, camping or somewhere where there wasn't any reception, then how do I get to a place where I need to like, or where I can snap something and keep that streak alive? It would make them anxious. Like, I need to figure that out. Which then eventually became a whole thing about like, oh, so then you can do certain things, or you can like, you are working really hard to get to this thing, right? So we would try and channel that energy to something else, but they were so like addicted to the idea of I need to just keep this going or I will fail at something,
Yeah.
which is sad, rough for them.
I think my concern with the accessibility of social media is it almost takes like creates like this bio of of a teen or an individual and like puts it out for everyone to see, and that's kind of how they view their value and their worth. Like, this is my life in a summary
Mhm.
is right here on this website or this screen.
Yeah.
And so it's about the likes. It's how many people said happy birthday on your birthday, how many people posted to your wall, how many people tagged you, and things like that. And if you go without that interaction, then clearly people don't care,
Yeah.
or you're not as good, but it doesn't tie it back to you as the individual. And I think that misplace of value is greatly concerning.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think also just becoming so dependent on it. Like, I need this certain thing to happen on this platform in order for me to feel good about myself or to go, I don't know, just it just seems very risky to me to tie so much like stock in that particular thing and whatever happens on that platform.
Yeah, and another interesting thing that reading that article, it was actually in the study, not just in the article, is that kids through social media are not necessarily doing age appropriate things anymore. Like, so like for me growing up, we didn't have the internet through my formidable years really. And so I was really formatted to do age appropriate stuff. I wasn't hanging out with adults or communicating with adults on a daily basis like that unless they were my teacher or a family member, occasionally a neighbor or something. And so I didn't do that kind of stuff, but it's all kind of muddled when it gets online and who's doing what. And there's obvious concerns of child safety on there, but just age appropriate stuff and what you have access to. And through social media, I was surprised to learn when we had Isabel Fairclough on talking about where she gets her news through TikTok. And like it, you could get news through that. You could get anything through any of these things. And so the age appropriateness kind of goes away. And nowadays, like occasionally they'll have a disclaimer, are you 17 or older? Click this box. It's like, yeah, everybody will just click that box,
Mhm.
right? Because there's no accountability. And so the concern of lack of age appropriate boundaries and learning to kind of grow with your age group is a concern. And that had me thinking a lot. I'm still trying to digest that of like as a youth worker and a mentor of like, hey, we gotta know that this is not age appropriate and talk to them and say, hey, like you gotta back off this because that slope is very slippery and it could take you in a bad direction. Um, Cyberbullying appeared to be the most damaging to girls, followed by lack of sleep and exercise. Have you experienced cyberbullying at all? Or was your bullying just limited to the schoolyard?
I did the bullying. Just
Oh.
kidding. No.
No, you're not. No, not really.
No,
Have you dealt with
same.
girls that have dealt with cyberbullying?
Not personally. Like I've heard, I know that cyberbullying exists,
Yeah,
but yeah, I think probably my age has spared me from a good portion of that.
yeah,
And I got to a developmental age where, like I said, I just don't take it as personally. So it
right,
doesn't feel like bullying.
yeah.
Yeah. My one of my nieces, when she was in high school, there was this app. I don't remember the name of it, but it was anonymous, and you can join a group of people in your high school. Say you specifically choose, this high school. I go to this high school, and all of these students go to that same high school, and you can post things anonymously.
Wow.
And my niece was actually like kind of a victim of that, where someone posted something about her that was not true, and then people can just comment on it, and it was just,
Just pile on.
yeah. And so I remember her being like, yeah, it was like traumatizing for her because she was like, I have to show up to school tomorrow. And none of this stuff is true, but she was like, all these people are saying these things. I don't even know who these people are, so I can't even confront them.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was like, sitting with her was like, what do we do? We can't say, this person did this, or, try and talk to administration or whatever. It was just there, and she had to just deal with it, and like blindly the next day, and figure out, maybe not figure out anything, but just be okay with, okay, it's not true. She has to convince herself that it's not true almost,
Yeah.
even though she knows it's not true, but now having to look at a bunch of people who she doesn't know who, said what, and who are her friends or who are not. And so for like a good week or so, she was just like, I don't know what is real. I don't know who, who said what are my friends, do I don't feel protected? Is my, my teachers or people at school going to protect me? No. So then it was just like she had no, like, stability in
Yeah, it's rough.
anything. Yeah, and so we try to figure out. I remember thinking like, well, how do we even go about this? And it became a whole conversation, but then it was just a normal school thing where, administration was letting the parents know that this is a thing that's happening and this is something that your kids may have access to. So look into it. But at the end of the day, it wasn't. I don't know if the app got taken down or anything, but that still was public information for whoever, and it was easy for them to just say drop any name and say whatever, and, it was rough, heavy. I could not imagine.
Scary, really, too. I do have experience with working with kids that have been bullied and girls as well. And it's similar to Christina's story. It's things could just be said, and it's hard to stop it once it's been said. And especially if it gets piled on and piled on, and in particular with apps that make things go away. They go away technically, but they're still staying around, and it's being perpetuated by gossip and different stuff. And so it's incredibly hurtful and traumatizing
Mhm.
for not just the kids, obviously the kids, but the families as well, depending on what was talked about. And so as youth workers and mentors and stuff, we need to be very aware of that and cautious in their social media, seeing it, even if like you see something that they're posting that is inappropriate, to hey, stop that train before it gets going. And because it doesn't go away easy. It could be resolved kind of, but all of that is still sitting in there. And then if it gets piled on again, we're adding on more and more little trauma steps in their life along the way. And that stays with them. And I've heard different people talk about testimonies of having to survive that kind of period in their life. It's a very significant thing and something that we need to be aware of, again, and not something that we talk about a lot, maybe in youth work, as cyberbullying and just bullying in general. But as a person who may receive some, but definitely did some bullying, look at me in shame. We know that you were the worst out of all of us.
I was actually very kind.
I'm sure you were.
Was.
But
Mm.
it's easy to slip into. It's easy to be on that end of it, and because it doesn't feel bad, but it's troubling, and we need to be better at talking about that kind of stuff. The study also talks about lack of sleep and exercise. Have you been affected by social media so much that you lost sleep and or didn't get out of the house and exercise? And I mean, I know that Heather utilized both Pokemon Go, so that was social media app and got you outside and moving around. So that was a bonus. But have you guys run into that where all of a sudden you've lost complete track of time and you're like, what the heck? It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm caught up in this.
I don't know that like I get like that late into the night, but I know like if I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't get back to sleep, the second I pick up my phone, I'm now awake probably 3 times longer than I would have been had I just sat there and like toughed it out
Yeah.
without picking up my phone.
Christina?
Yeah, I go into rabbit holes
Yeah.
because I'm just laying there, and if I go for hour. I'm a type 5.
Oh, getting
Type
Enneagram
5.
on us.
And so I just constantly want to like learn new things. So I just rabbit hole of like, okay, what about this? Google this. And so then it becomes yeah, sometimes it's hours of it. And I'm like, oh, it's 3 in the morning. I need
Yeah.
to put my phone down.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult.
It's pretty easy. Have you done that?
Sort of. I think if I go down a rabbit hole, a lot of times it'll be like YouTube or something.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you just start watching one video on a topic or something, and you just
They're
kind of
long
like
videos,
go
yeah.
for a while. But I don't know. Like for me, I don't know if I've gone like super late into the night or anything with it, but I have caught myself spending like, I'm like, where did the time go? You know, because I get so stuck on something.
Yeah. And I think that's what happens when it's smaller content. I know I realized my YouTube has changed viewing. I was like, oh yeah, I only wanted to watch like 30-second clips. But now I'm like, oh, I'm watching like 7-minute clips. And then, oh, I could stomach a 14-minute clip. And it just kind of gets a little bit worse. And it's just so easy to get into. I think, one of the things as leaders that we could do, particularly when we're mentoring young people and you with ladies, is modeling that too. Because so many times you hear it, even just from pulpit and stuff. Well, this could be damaging to you. And you look and you're a pastor or you're a youth leader or you yourself are posting stuff constantly and not modeling that type of proper behavior. But it is slippery. Mine would be YouTube. Sometimes Reddit. I get deep into Reddit. The other deep dives that I do are totally unnecessary, but like if there's like a movie on or like some show and I'm like, I wonder what they're up to nowadays. And so I start looking up that and then I find myself going through the whole cast. I know what school that they went to and like doing these deep dives on all these people. And I'm like, it's completely meaningless. And I caught myself a few years ago just wasting so much of my time doing that and or watching TV. And I would be like, once I put the kids to bed, I be like 9:30, 10. I'm still watching TV. It's like I'm on hour 2 or 3. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, so I try to be better. I went in the garage and just started doing art, like stuff. And I didn't know how to do any of it. And so I would commit to an hour to 30 minutes to an hour. And I'd say, okay, today I'm going to do 30 minutes of work. And then once I was done, then I was done. But I found just even getting outside and doing those activities changed my thought. And so like so much so that different things, like we go on walks as a family after dinner, if we're all home but some group is walking pretty much every day and that takes away some things. But I don't miss some of the other stuff. Like I don't have recorded television anymore and I'm like, I don't need it. I just missed it. And learning to miss things has been helpful for us to try to, but I still get suckered in, especially when you're going to bed at night. It's very easy to get suckered in and go into that whole stuff. Influencers is a term that is thrown around a lot nowadays. Are influencers a good thing?
So I struggle with that a bit
Yeah, me too. I've tried to figure out, is that a positive thing or a negative thing?
because if in like all reality, influencers has been a thing our whole lifetime.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's put a little spin on the word. And
Yeah.
so what are they influencing?
Right.
Right.
To what extent are they influencing? how much value, again, here we are with that,
Yeah.
are you putting into what they're saying or doing?
Mhm.
It does feel like influencer is a negative thing though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right now, does that your perception? Like it feels like a negative.
It can be, I
Okay.
guess. When I
Depends.
think of influencers, I think of people trying like selling products and stuff,
Okay.
influencing people to consumers sort
Hmm.
of because a lot of people, if you have a large like social media following, chances are you know have a sponsorship of some sort or some deal or something. So yeah, I don't know, it depends on the product, I guess. So I don't know.
That's interesting. When I think of influencers, I think of more of like a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's where my mind goes to first. And then every once in a while, yeah, they'll get the little like, this is an ad or whatever. But like they're selling a lifestyle, they're selling a look, they're selling like this culture
Yeah.
and this vibe. Yeah.
I think I'm probably more in that camp too, and I do hear the product stuff. That's a very real thing,
Well, a lot of times I think they start off with the lifestyle and then brands like pick
right?
up on that and they're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
hey," they send them a bunch of free stuff,
Yeah,
"Hey, show this product or whatever."
yeah. It's it's a weird thing, right? And it could be anybody. It's not just some famous person now. It's anybody that just strikes a following. I just saw a guy that used to go to WYI a few years ago, and he's over 1 million followers on TikTok now, and is a bona fide influencer and
Wow.
stuff. So he would tell stories of people and homeless people generally. But yeah, he's got over 1 million. So I mean, and he's a good dude. But I always feel like it's negative. But how can we look at as influencers of young girls and you guys' own right? Uh, do you have concerns about the influencers that are trying to attract young girls into this type of culture?
I mean, I guess it depends, right, on what that lifestyle is like.
Hmm.
Um, if it's in, if what they're portraying or, whatever is positive, then that's great. But I don't know. I guess it just depends. We don't know if that's a thing or not. And I think nowadays, girls are very much look up to these people, and maybe they themselves want to be influencers, assuming that they get, I don't know, they get free products or they get, whatever, following. But I mean, I don't know. I guess it just depends on what it is that they're showing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause it's weird. Like, think about it. Like, as a Christian, as a mother, as a mentor, I want to be influential.
Yeah.
But the second you say, like, I want to be an influencer, it's like, whoa.
Hmm.
Yeah. But with those avenues in mind, it's like, what do I want to, how do I want to influence them? How do I want to model these things? And really, like, we don't have control over the influencers or the influential folks in our teens' lives. Um, but we can impact the teens and what they take in, how they evaluate that. Like, what are they selling? Is that in line with what I want to be,
Yeah.
what I want to buy into?
Yeah. Megan, any thoughts on that?
Same kind of thing. Yeah, I think yeah, we don't have control over, these influencers and whatever it is they're putting out there, but I think we can help teens to process and to digest that and to maybe filter that or set some boundaries with that. Also, how to respond to it as well.
Yeah, and I think in addition to all that is educate them in what they're actually doing and how that is. Like there's plenty of videos online where it makes it look like they're in somewhere spectacular, but they're not. It's this fake lifestyle. And it's funny when I was a little kid, I don't know how old I was, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that range. There was a show that taught kids how commercials are made and like how a McDonald's hamburger looks so good and taught kids how that's done and why those commercials are done that way. And I swear to you, I could recite that whole thing. It was so amazing to me. It pulled the curtain back on like Hollywood, if you will. And it was such an awareness thing for me that every time to this day that I see a commercial and I see steam coming, I'm like, I know exactly how they do that. I know how they stack those fries and they're using styrofoam. I know how they do that. And that was all from a show when I was a little kid. And so pulling back the curtain on that, I think it's something that we need to be looking at doing often and saying, hey, look, this is what this appears like, but this is what it actually is. And this is maybe who they are, and kind of going through that, because there is this myth of this great life and this embarrassment of riches and all that stuff. And that means something. And while for some people can handle it, a lot can't. And so we have to be able to kind of peel back the layers on that and do some education, so that way they could start to discern from themselves when it is, or say, hey, look, this is when you know that you're leading down into a darker area of the web that you don't want to be around, or know when to stop that conversation when it starts to get into bullying or talking about, Christina's niece, you know what I mean? And so being able to understand those barriers and have those in your life, we need to be talking about that a lot more. According to Dasha Nichols, who leads the child and adolescent mental health research team, she said the key messages to young people are: get enough sleep, don't lose contact with your friends in real life, and physical activity is important for mental health and well-being. If you look after yourself in those ways, you don't have to worry about the impact of social media. Sounds easy enough, right? As youth leaders, how do we encourage these type of activities?
Well, one thing I just want to kind of point out from that quote, I think she says the key message is to young people, not just to girls, and I think it's
Yeah,
really important to note in here that I know the title of the article is saying that it does impact girls
absolutely.
more than boys, but I think we all know it impacts boys as
Yes,
well.
and that's an important point. It does impact boys, and the research will show that
Mhm.
definitely.
And I do think these suggestions are beneficial for boys and girls as well. It seems very simplistic to
I know.
me.
That's why I'm like, oh well.
I don't know
uh,
if it's that interconnected. That part, the jury's kind of still out for me on that. But yeah, I think those are all great things. Just from a practical standpoint, I think you know a lot of times, like youth group, if you do YPL or you do teen night or whatever, you can do a mix of like physical activities versus I don't know. You could balance it out with like more stationary activities as well, but it doesn't always have to be like hyper intensive, like athletic, like let's go play like
yeah,
soccer every single, Friday night or whatever it is. Unless your youth group is super into that, then by all means go for that. But not all kids are going to be into that. I know I wouldn't have been into that when I was a kid, but yeah, just finding a mix of activities that you can do with your kids, I think would be a good maybe first step in that.
yeah. Other thoughts on that?
I think one of the things that comes to mind is like Lent season comes around and how many young folks say, "Oh, I'm giving up social media or I'm giving up this app." But that's not sustainable, and all it is after Lent they're suddenly like, "Oh my gosh, what did I miss?" And they're spending 3 times the amount of
Right.
time on there because they have to catch up on the past
Even
20.
if they even made it that far.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard.
But instead, like she says, I think in this Time article at a different point where she says it's about a balance of between social media and age appropriate activities.
Yep.
So she's not saying be done with social media. We
Right.
don't have to cast aside like
Yep.
this whole giving it up for Lent thing. But there's like an app on, I know that Apple products have it, the downtime,
Hmm.
where you can
Mhm.
intentionally like set limits. Like on Instagram, I'm only going to be on Instagram for an hour a day, and it'll give you a heads up, like heads up, you only have 10 more minutes. And you can be like, is this how I want to spend it? Do I want to,
Yeah.
or do I want to save it for later? And you can limit how, access. And so I think utilizing that as a youth leader as yourself, for yourself, but then also sharing that with your teens to help them and develop that skill and recognizing it. But also, I think we need to move away from this language of social media is bad, bad, bad,
Right.
because there are some really good things that come out of social media.
Yep.
We can lift the curtain now thanks to YouTube,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I just showed my kids, they're afraid of the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. And I'm like, oh, look, this is how they made it. And they just watched the 3D model thing and they're like, it's not real. And it just clicked suddenly.
Yep.
And now their fears are a little bit eased. So thank you, YouTube. Thank you, social media. So we can't say it's all bad.
Right.
And then also, so many of them, if they lack that connection in real life, maybe they're not bonding with their family, maybe they've gone through something, but also maybe they lack the connection at school. Some of them are finding it over these gaming things online. They don't know the other person, but they feel that person actually cares about me.
Yeah.
And so there are some positive things that come out of social media. So I think if we can be mindful of the language we use and not just say strike it from your life altogether,
Yeah.
but instead let's find positive ways that we can utilize this to enhance your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the idea of the balance and trying to sort out the balance in the life, and it's different for some people could do more in this area, but some can't handle it, so maybe you need to limit your apps that you need to do, but maybe you could be on each one for just a little bit and kind of sort yourself out and you're fine. But working with each other to find that balance. And I think it's also important to know that, like when working with young people, is to let them know that this isn't a young person issue either. This is very much a us issue, and that they know that we struggle with that too. And there's different parts of that we struggle with. And I think that helps with some of that. It doesn't feel, you don't feel alone. But I always, you know, I always thought, oh gosh, you guys have no idea. And then when I found out as an adult that I still had the same issues that I did when I was 16, it's like, it happens. I'm with you. And so something like very practical, like you were talking about the downtime on the app is, maybe that's something, if social media is an issue for you, maybe we could do this together and hold each other accountable, or just getting outside. Some people just don't like being outside and being physically active. And so maybe we could do that together or find different ways. Maybe you could design your programs around that kind of stuff and or model like programs. This is where I struggle in youth ministry when we copy too much of things. But I do think that you could use social media and youth programming for good and show that it could be a very good thing and it's a very positive thing, and think of clever ways of doing that. But and not like dancing that line with some of the activities, like of posting like on Instagram different things that you would do. I don't know. There's things, but yeah, trying to find that balance. The not losing contact with friends, I think, is the biggest worry, right? If social media is an issue, then you don't want to lose track with your friends. But figure out different ways to be connected and to do things together.
Oh, can I just say, when I think about it says don't lose contact with your friends in real life, I think social media has almost created a barrier for people to be able to have like friendships sometimes and
Mm,
develop friendships because we're so used to communicating digitally that sometimes, and this could be a pandemic thing too, but like you almost have to like re-socialize yourself, like getting used to like being around people again and stuff. And so I don't know, it sounds like simple, but I think like social media can kind of create a barrier to having authentic, like in-person relationships sometimes or friendships.
yeah.
Mhm.
John Acuff posted something recently that his daughter, who is 18, she said this: "Sometimes I'm afraid Instagram culture is encouraging my generation to document fun things instead of enjoying them. I know people who spent weeks picking out the perfect homecoming dress for the photo, but then left the dance 10 minutes, in 10 minutes once it was posted." And so not like that's checking in and making that lifestyle thing, but not really experiencing it. It's like, and I saw that, but as an 18-year-old, it's pretty significant to catch. But I was catching myself doing that kind of stuff and be like, all right, yeah, got a picture, bam, did that. Instead of put the phone away, enjoy it and bask in what you have to offer. And I think for young people, yeah, is to, hey man, just go and enjoy yourself. And we don't have to make a deal of it or anything like that. It's,
One of my nieces recently was like, Auntie, why do you post things so late?
yes, what you need to know, listeners, Christina will go on vacation, and then 6 months later, she like posts something. Could be a year later.
Yeah, but they notice they're like, what? People think that you're probably there still. I'm like, yeah, actually that's true. Sometimes people do think I'm still there. And so she's like, are you doing it so people just don't know where you are? And it's like, no, I just I'm enjoying it.
Yeah,
I take my few pictures, but for the most part, I don't want to have to just be so worried about capturing the moment that I miss the moment.
yeah,
And so then I end up doing it after a week or so later, 2 weeks later, where I've already processed it. I'm back. I'm, whatever, doing whatever back at work or doing X, Y, X, Y, and Z. But now I'm gonna I'm gonna post whatever that memory was, and make sure that I am documenting it so I can still remember it down the road. But for the most part, no, I don't. I just don't have why.
I like that. I've been trying to learn from you on that because I think it's cool. Like, just go and enjoy the moment, and uh and don't look at it through a square on your camera, but look at it with your big eyeballs.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely want to remember it, so that's why I still capture it. But I think in the moment, I'm like, I can't be so worried that I need to get like the perfect shot that I am missing out on what's literally right in front of me, or missing out on the conversations with
Yeah,
whoever I'm with, or whatever it may be. I want to try and remember those things instead of how long it took me to get that perfect shot. It's not really as important.
right. Excellent. Salvation Army highlight is I'm going to highlight 3 programs that are all young adult programs, young adult focus, and by the time this podcast comes out, they will be heavily into recruiting. So that's why I want to highlight it. First is camp, summer camp. We all worked at summer camp. I believe
Yes.
so.
Mhm.
Yes, all of us. How many summers, Heather,
6.
Christina?
5.
7.
And 9. That's a lot of years of summer camp sitting on these couches and chairs. Uh, I think we could all agree that it was life-changing and heavy impact. Um, Summer camps, we have 12 summer camps in the Western United States, and all of which will be hiring as you hear this. So check them out. And you could type in any camp and find what you need in your local division. I encourage you to work at your local division and be part of it. It's a great experience. The second one is Service Corps. Megan, Service Corps. Megan gets the opportunity to organize Service Corps. What do we need to know about Service Corps?
We have a pretty big change to Service Corps this year.
Monster.
Pretty big. So in the past, Service Corps has only been available and open to Salvationist young adults. And by Salvationists, I'm referring to soldiers, senior soldiers specifically. This year, however, we're changing things a little bit, actually a lot. And we are opening up Service Corps to any young adults ages 18 to 28. You do not have to be a senior soldier. You actually don't even have to be affiliated with the Salvation Army. We are looking for people who are committed to their church, but it does not have to be the Salvation Army.
Yeah, it's really cool opportunities there. And Service Corps is not just serving kind of locally here in the United States, but it could be serving around the world. And truthfully, we're not entirely sure this summer because COVID is changing rapidly on things. But we know that we're going to have some great trips this summer to provide.
Yeah, and we do plan to have 2 kind of shorter term options for people who aren't able to make the commitment for the entire summer. So we'll have Summer Service Corps for 7 weeks, and then we'll have hopefully two trips, one in the spring and one in the midsummer that are about 2 weeks each.
Yeah. Super fun there. Heather went on Service Corps.
did.
Christina went on Service Corps. Megan went on Service Corps. I did not.
Wah, wah.
I did not.
You probably interview us.
You did.
You did.
I'm still traumatized.
Oh. I did. I have interviewed each one of you.
Mhm.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for letting me go.
Yeah. I
Who's the senior now?
I orientated all of you at some
Yep.
point, and I don't think I did debriefings individually with all of you, but yes. So I organized Service Corps, but I never got to go on Service Corps. And then the last one is Revolution Hawaii, who is always looking year round for young adults. I don't quite know the age range, but I do know it's 18 and up, and it could be a year long, or it could be what they call essentials. So what they would be looking for when you hear this, and you would go from January to June, and you will live at Camp Homolani on the North Shore of Oahu, and it's a discipleship uh, really experience. It's really quite neat. They get up super early in the morning, exercise, do Bible study, and then do small groups, and then do some teaching. And then they go and volunteer in their communities. It's a really neat program that I've been lucky enough to teach at for a few years. And
Is So I just saw on Instagram that they're announcing another track as well.
Yes.
The surf track.
Rob has tried desperately to get that surf track going for years. And the cool part is because it's on the North Shore of Oahu, the surfing is literally right at the camp, right there.
Yeah.
There's a great surf spot to learn and to surf. And it's a neat program. If you know young adults, check it out at revhi.com. Lots of really cool opportunities for young adults, a mix of opportunities that I didn't have when I was going through. And so really cool experience to be a part of. We want all of our young adults to have that type of experience. Heather, thanks for joining us and walking all the way over from our fine offices to record this. And
Traveled far to be here.
we are saying goodbye to Christina Macias. Yeah.
Oh, that's happening.
Yeah, not just on the podcast, but
dude.
by the time you hear this, she'll be gone. And she has got an opportunity to go work. And
She's not going far though.
No.
in
just straight.
California South,
Down the
her
freeway.
commute is a lot less,
Yes.
35 minutes less. And Christina is finishing her 7th year or in your 7th year?
In my 7th year.
7th year of working in the youth department. She's done significant things, and we were going to miss you. And a little bit jealous of your drive, probably all of us. But we're gonna miss you, and the work that you did was awesome. And we will visit you when we have to stop in Carson for whatever reason.
The bathroom.
The bathroom
Does it smell there?
still does, yeah. Sulfur, Carson sulfur,
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, we discussed that in our post-Christian culture episode. So if you have
Yeah, it's a thing here.
an interest in the sulfur smell, go back and
It's
listen
like
to that
borderline
episode.
Compton, right? So.
Yep.
All right, I feel safe.
Yeah. So no, we appreciate you, and thanks for coming on. This won't be the last time you're our guest on a podcast. We'll bring you on in the future, but thanks for being here. Anything we've talked about in this episode is linked in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, you better just enjoy this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Saynetwork podcast on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube so you don't miss out on the new content. This is the last show of the season 5.
Yep.
And it was a really cool season. It was a little exhausting, I got to be honest. This is the first time that we've recorded everything in like 4 days. But we've had some really great guests on, some profound thoughts and thinking that had my brain just really going on overdrive on the drive home. It's been a great season once again, and we'll see you on season 6. Oh, don't even get me started about season 6. It's going to be real. Right, Megan?
It will be real.
Megan, just go along with it. Come on, I was telegraphing it. All you have to do is like, oh yeah.
She's like,
oh yeah.
okay.
Season 6.
I work with Megan long enough. She's like, that's not in the script. Can you just read what's on the dang piece of paper? But thank you to everyone. Thank you for your help. Jordan, thank you for all the work that you've done behind the scenes and in front of the microphone twice, which was exciting to see Jordan in action. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next season. Farewell.
See you guys.
Yeah.